We're down here in Tucson and we want to do some gear reviews, so we thought we'd go someplace different. We're going to try catching some snow while we still can. It looks like there's still some snow up on those hills. So right now it's about 20 after 2 and we're down in Tucson, and we'll see how long it takes us to get up to here. It's about 20 minutes after 2.
Well, it actually took about an hour to get to the top of the mountain. And in this video, what I thought I would do, since I turned the camera on quite a few times as I was driving up the mountain that day, I thought I would make a video about Mount Lemmon. Mount Lemmon is a mountain just north of Tucson with this road that drives right up to the top. And since we do quite a bit of videos up there, we hike up there a lot, which seems like we're up there quite a bit, I would make a video just talking about the mountain. And as I started to do some research, I was really impressed with the amount of stuff I was able to find about the mountain, and thought I'd try to compress a bunch of it, at least the stuff I found interesting, into a video here. So obviously we're fast forwarding as I turn the camera on for some different spurts going up the hill here. I'm just going to start off by talking about Mount Lemmon, which is one of the peaks, the tallest peak in the Catalina Mountains, which are in the Santa Catalina Ranger District, which is in the Coronado National Forest. And I'll just sort of break it down like that and give you some descriptions about, like I say, the interesting aspects, in my opinion, of this area. It's about a 250 million year old pile of rocks, 9,157 feet tall. Archaeological stuff goes back 1,200 years. The Hohokam Indians, later the Tohono O'odham and the Apache. In the 1870s and 80s, the U.S. soldiers used some of the forts here to help fight the Apaches. In 1881, the mountain was named after Sara Lemmon, a 45-year-old biologist who was instrumental in creating the the golden poppy as the state flower of California. It's a pretty interesting story if you're interested in stuff like that. The first road up the mountain was built in 1920, and that was from the other side of the mountain coming up. This road, though, was built in 1930 through 1950 or something like that. An F-86 fighter crashed in 1957. It's accessible through one of the trails, one of the many trails off of the highway. The couple other points of interest at the top of the mountain are Ski Valley, where there's skiing and whatnot. There's a town called Summerhaven. There's a lake towards the top of the mountain called Rose Canyon Lake. It's about 6 acres. It's not a real big lake, but for a few months of the year, it's a real pleasant trip to get up out of the heat and fish. The Arizona Trail passes through the mountain, which is a trail that goes from Mexico up to Utah. Thing that's interesting for me at the top of Mount Lemmon is the Infrared Observatory, which started out life in 1956 through 1969 as a radar base for the Air Defense Command. In 1970, it was converted into an observatory, and it's now run by the University of Arizona. But during its life, it also was a command center for the 18 Titan missiles, Titan II missiles that were here in Tucson. It was also a radar for the space shuttle if it ever needed to do an emergency landing at White Sands, New Mexico, not too far away. So like I said, there's lots of interesting stuff going on top of the mountain. We're on Catalina Highway, which is named, it's really the General Hitchcock Highway, which is named after the Postmaster General Hitchcock, who was instrumental in getting the road built. Like I say, it was started in 1933 and then finally finished in 1950. Most of the work was done by federal prisoners. The road travels from 3,000 feet all the way up to 9,100 feet, and we're just about to hit the end here. We're in the, you can see as we went up the mountain, we went through the various altitudes, and we got into more and more snow. Now we're finally up at the ski slopes at the top, and I will come back to normal speed here and watch this guy snowboarding, and then I'll talk for a bit. And then on the way down, I'll narrate a little bit more about the mountains and the forest that it's in. If you're interested in this, keep listening. If not, see ya. And there's lots of links on the descriptions here. I wanted to let people know more info if they're interested.
And here we are on top of the mountain. So we're not looking south towards Tucson. Right now we're actually looking north, and Phoenix is about 150 miles that way. We're looking down. That would be Oracle, Arizona, down at the bottom of the hill here.
And we'll speed it up as we go back down the hill. We'll explain that this is a mountain in the Santa Catalina Mountains, which were named by Francisco Kino in 1697 in honor of St. Catherine. The mountain range is one of many sky islands. There's 27 of these in the United States, another 15 of them in Mexico. They're islands that rise up out of the deserts. As you rise to higher elevations, cooler temperatures, and more humidity, you're able to have the ponderosa pine, spruce, mixed conifer forests that can't exist down in the lowland deserts below. Here we are up on top of Tucson. Tucson is just barely visible down there. Got a pretty neat cloud coming. Pretty nice rest area up here to stop and see the view. Camera sort of cut out on me there. So we're in the Santa Catalina Ranger District, which is about 150,000 acres, inside the Coronado National Forest, which is 1.78 million acres, covers southeastern Arizona and southwestern New Mexico. These sky islands reach up 10,000 feet out of the desert. Were formed by volcanic activity back when the North American continent was ripped out of the Pacific Ocean. Gives us diverse geology, which is why we've got extensive mining activity during historic times. They've got relics of culture dating back to 11,000 years ago with the Clovis culture. More recently, agricultural Mogollon and Hohokam Indians. And then even later, more recently, the Tohono O'odham and Pima Indians. Later still, the Apaches, and then the Spaniards. And then the Gadsden Purchase in 1854. The United States bought this section of Arizona and New Mexico. Since then, 1902, this area was first managed as a forest, and since then it's been managed as a national forest. So I had no idea what I was getting into when I started doing some research on Mount Lemmon, but from a jet plane wreckage to the Titan II command center to the wildlife and vegetation. It's just a really interesting resource here in Tucson if you're ever visiting. It's worth the couple of 3 hours round trip it'll take you to drive to the top and down. If you're here in Tucson, then don't forget this great resource we've got. You get up into the mountains and you can do some hiking. And hopefully this was an interesting video for people that don't have something like this. And these last couple of shots are just driving back into town, taking a look at the sunset.